Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at something pretty interesting, Tritordeum,
Mm-hmm.
the golden cereal, as they call it,
Right.
and its potential for sourdough bread.
Yes.
We're using a research article to guide our deep dive here.
Okay.
It's titled Sourdough Performances of the Golden Cereal Tricordium,
Mm-hmm.
and it was published in the International Journal of Food Microbiology.
Very cool.
So get ready to learn all about this unique grain, how
Yeah.
it does in the world of sourdough,
Mm.
and how that bread compares to,
Yeah.
what we're used to with a regular yeast-risen loaf.
So what makes Tritordeum so interesting is that it's not some like ancient grain that, we just rediscovered.
Right.
It's actually a completely new cereal.
Wow.
It's a hybrid of durum wheat, which everyone knows that's what we use for pasta,
Right.
and a wild barley from South America.
So this isn't your grandma's wheat.
No.
But why is this hybrid so special?
Well, first of all, it gets that nickname golden because of the carotenoids it contains.
Oh, okay.
And carotenoids are antioxidants, which are good for you.
Right.
And they also give the grain this beautiful golden hue.
Okay.
But, it's not just about looks.
Right.
Tritordeum is also more climate resilient than traditional wheat.
Oh, interesting.
This is because of that wild barley parent.
Okay.
It needs less water to grow, and it can tolerate tougher conditions thanks to its longer roots.
So it's more sustainable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More sustainable.
That's great. So good for the planet.
Yeah.
But what about for, the people eating it?
Right.
How does Tritordeum stack up in terms of nutrition?
Well, it kind of takes the best of both worlds from, both of its parents.
Yeah, okay.
From durum wheat. It inherits that great texture, and the protein.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Yeah.
Because of that wild barley, Tritordeum might actually be easier to digest for people who are sensitive to gluten.
Oh, wow. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Now, this study isn't just about the grain itself.
Right.
It's about what happens when you use it for sourdough.
Exactly. They looked at the ins and outs of sourdough fermentation using Tritordeum flour.
Okay.
They actually used a traditional type I sourdough method, which means they kind of kept a sourdough pet, if you will.
Huh.
They refreshed this starter every day for 10 days with new flour and water, which is also called backslopping.
Oh, backslopping. Okay.
Yeah.
So, like a pet, the sourdough starter needs regular feeding
Exactly. It needs to be fed
to stay happy and healthy.
to stay alive.
But what's actually happening inside that starter as it's being fed and growing?
Well, think of it as a tiny little ecosystem.
Oh, okay.
The researchers tracked the types of bacteria and yeast growing in there, and they measured changes in things like acidity and sugar content.
Okay.
What they found was actually really fascinating.
Oh.
Just after 3 days, the microbial diversity, the different types of microbes in the sourdough, reached its peak. And then something really interesting happened.
I'm all ears. What happened?
It started to streamline. It became less diverse,
Okay.
but more specialized.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a microbial survival of the fittest.
Right.
Only the best and the ones that create the best flavors survived.
So like natural selection.
Exactly. Natural selection.
Okay.
Initially, Weissella bacteria were the stars of the show.
Okay.
These guys play a key role in those early stages of sourdough fermentation.
Right.
But then over time, Lactoplantobacillus started to take over.
Huh. Interesting.
And these are known for producing that lactic acid, which gives sourdough that, signature tang.
So a microbial power shift within the starter.
Yes, a power shift.
What about the yeast, though?
Oh, yeah.
Because,
For sure.
sourdough is all about those airy bubbles created by the yeast, right?
Yeah, so Saccharomyces cerevisiae, the, champion of baking, was the dominant species there.
Okay.
But they were actually outnumbered at first.
Oh, really?
It took them till like day 4 to really get going and start multiplying.
So each microbe is kind of playing a different role at different times.
Exactly. It's like a symphony.
And this whole microbial drama
Yes.
impacts the bread itself.
It really does, yeah, in some interesting ways.
I mean, everyone knows that sourdough has that tangy flavor, but
Right.
what else is going on beyond just our taste buds?
Well, like you said, the tanginess is mostly because of those lactic and acetic acids, which are produced by the bacteria.
Right, right.
But the researchers, they measured those acids and other biochemical changes.
Okay.
For example, they looked at how sugars like glucose, fructose, and sucrose were breaking down during fermentation.
Yeah.
And guess what they found? Mannitol.
Mannitol. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now remind me what's so special about mannitol.
Well, mannitol is a type of sugar alcohol that's found naturally in some fruits and veggies.
Right.
But in sourdough, certain bacteria produce it,
Huh.
especially those lactobacillus species,
Oh, okay.
that were becoming dominant in the Tritordeum sourdough.
Right.
Mannitol plays a part in creating that sourdough flavor and texture.
Okay.
It might even have prebiotic effects,
Oh, wow.
which can help, the beneficial bacteria in our gut to flourish.
So it transforms the taste and the texture.
Yeah.
And it's good for our gut.
Potentially, yeah.
That's awesome. What a combo.
And this is where it gets even cooler, I think.
Right.
They found this really interesting connection between the microbes that were present
Mm-hmm.
and the biochemical changes happening in the sourdough.
Okay.
So, for instance, the more lactobacillus,
Yeah.
the more acidic the sourdough became.
So more lactobacillus, more tang.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier about some nutritional highlights,
Yeah. Yes.
What exactly are we talking about? What are the benefits?
As the sourdough matured, it's like it unlocked all these nutrients.
Mm.
They found a significant increase in total phenols.
Oh.
These are plant compounds that act as antioxidants.
Like little warriors
Aha, exactly.
protecting ourselves.
Yeah, protecting ourselves.
Okay.
And get this, the sourdough fermentation boosted that antioxidant activity even further.
Wow.
But there's more.
Oh,
They also found an increase in total dietary fiber.
which is great for our digestion.
Exactly.
But wait, there was something else you said, right?
Yes.
Something about anti-nutritional factors.
Right, those are the bad guys.
Okay, those don't sound good.
No, they're not good.
What are those?
They interfere with our bodies absorbing certain nutrients.
Oh, no.
But the good news is sourdough fermentation can reduce them.
Oh.
They found in this study that phytic acid and raffinose, which are two common anti-nutrients, were significantly reduced.
So it's like sourdough is a superhero.
Yeah.
It's boosting the good stuff.
Boys.
It's fighting those anti-nutrients, and it's turning this already good Tritordeum
Like-
into, even better, like a nutritional powerhouse.
Exactly, a powerhouse.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and so this all leads to the most important question.
Yeah.
What kind of bread does it actually make?
All right, well, stay tuned as we dive into the baking results and see how Tritordeum sourdough stacks up against traditional bread made with yeast.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back after the break. Okay, so let's talk bread. The researchers actually baked loaves
They did.
with their Tritordeum sourdough and compared them
Mm.
to bread made with the typical baker's yeast.
Right.
What did they find?
Well, the sourdough definitely held its own.
Okay.
This study focused more on the science behind the fermentation,
Right.
not so much on like taste tests and stuff.
Okay.
But they did a really cool analysis of the bread's texture.
Oh, the science of texture. Tell me more.
Yeah, so first off, both the sourdough bread and the yeast bread
Mm-hmm.
had this beautiful yellowish crumb,
Okay.
from those natural carotenoids in the Tritordeum.
Right. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, but when it came to the feel of the bread, there were some noticeable differences.
Oh.
The Tritordeum sourdough bread had a much firmer crust and crumb
Oh, interesting.
compared to the yeast-based bread.
So like a heartier loaf?
Yeah, exactly. Heartier, more rustic.
Okay.
Not only firmer, but the sourdough was also more cohesive.
Cohesive, you mean like it holds together well?
Exactly. It doesn't crumble as easily.
Gotcha.
Sourdoughs are known for having that nice, well-structured crumb.
Right.
And this Tritordeum sourdough was no exception.
Okay.
It also got high marks for resilience,
Resilience.
meaning it bounced back nicely after being compressed.
Oh, I like that word resilience.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So it's more nutritious.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a beautiful golden color.
Yes.
And it's got a great texture.
Exactly.
Sounds like a winner to me.
It does. And this is just the beginning,
Yeah.
This research opens up so many possibilities for both Tritordeum
Right.
and for sourdough.
It's like a whole new chapter in bread making.
It is.
But let's bring it back to our listeners.
Yeah.
Why should they care about all of this?
Yeah.
What are the key takeaways?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think there's several important takeaways.
Okay.
First, this study really shows us how great Tritordeum is
Mm-hmm.
as a sustainable and nutritious alternative
Right.
to the wheat we're used to.
Okay.
It's a grain that can do well in tough environments.
Yeah.
And that means it can be a more reliable source of food in the future.
Like a superhero grain.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saving the planet one loaf at a time.
What's the second takeaway then?
Well, I think the second one is just the sheer power of sourdough fermentation.
Yeah.
It's completely natural, It makes the bread taste better,
Yeah.
makes the texture better, and it makes it more nutritious.
Right.
It's like a win-win-win.
Yeah, and anyone can try it at home.
Exactly.
Sourdough can seem a little scary at first,
Yeah.
but it's a really rewarding experience.
It is.
It connects us to, the history of bread, and it lets us experiment with different grains and flavors.
It's a journey.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, Tritordeum sourdough, the next big thing, maybe.
Who knows? It could be.
I can see it happening. But there's one more takeaway here.
Yes, there is.
Something about how the researchers did this study.
Yeah. This wasn't just about testing a new recipe.
Right.
This was about really understanding sourdough fermentation on a deep level,
Okay.
They used all sorts of techniques, traditional methods like culturing and counting microbes,
Okay.
but also really high-tech stuff like DNA analysis.
Wow.
And this helped them figure out all the crazy interactions going on in the sourdough.
It's amazing what we can learn from these little microbes.
It is, isn't it?
This research helps us appreciate, the web of life that exists in something as simple as bread.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And it helps us make smarter choices about the food we eat and how it's made.
Yeah.
So it's all about connecting, the science and the nutrition and the joy of baking.
For sure.
Speaking of joy,
Yeah.
what are you thinking about, listener?
Yeah.
What made you interested in this deep dive? We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
But for now, let's move on to a final thought-provoking question
Okay.
about the future of bread making. So we've talked about a lot in this deep dive, from those fields where this golden grain grows to that, super intricate world of sourdough fermentation.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And now we're kind of thinking about a future with Tritordeum sourdough.
It is pretty exciting.
It's amazing how much we've learned from just this one research article.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
let's leave you all with a question to ponder.
Okay. I like it.
We've seen how Tritordeum is so great, right?
Right.
It's sustainable, it's nutritious, and maybe even easier to digest for some people with gluten sensitivities.
Potentially, yeah.
We've seen how that sourdough fermentation, makes those benefits even better. It creates this bread that's healthier, more delicious, and has an awesome texture.
Like the best of all worlds.
So if we have this grain that's good for us and the planet, and this process that just makes it even better,
Right.
how could that change the future of bread?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah,
Could we see Tritordeum sourdough everywhere?
right.
Could it change how we bake?
Yeah.
Could we see, more sustainable and nutritious bread in our stores?
It's a really exciting thing to think about. Maybe you could even, inspire bakers to get creative,
Oh, for sure.
experimenting with different techniques and Tritordeum blends and stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
To make even more unique and delicious loaves.
That would be amazing.
This research really does give us a glimpse into the future,
Yeah.
where our bread is not just tasty, but also good for us and the planet.
Exactly. A force for good.
I want to be a part of that future.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Tritordeum sourdough.
It's been a pleasure.
Keep an eye out for Tritordeum products in your store. You never know. You might just find your new favorite bread.
You might.
Until next time, happy baking, everyone.